Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, One Day Savings recently contacted me again and asked me if I would be interested in another collab with them. So I said, sure, why not? So this is what I selected, and this first off is it's just a bunch of different kind of larger size temporary tattoos. And then we've got some stamps, which I am going to be doing something in a future video with. Now, if you've never shopped at One Day Savings, they do have I want to say they are predominantly a lot of like your diamond dot paintings and stuff like that, but they do have a lot of scrapbooking stuff, a lot of stamp type things. They do offer silicone molds, which is really nice, and they are reasonably priced as well. And I do have a discount code in the description box below for them. I believe it saves you like 5% off. And then they've always got all kinds of crazy sales going on. All right, back to the video. So what I want to do today is I want to do this temporary tattoo, but we're going to take it up a notch and we're going to do it in a different way. And this is kind of loosely inspired by Wendy over at Toonpish Crafts, but we've got my take on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because I need this to lay flat, I am just going to tape it to this tray that I have. If you have like a ceramic tile or something like that, it actually would probably work a little bit better. But this is what I've got, so this is what I'm going to use. And all it's going to do is going to keep it nice and straight and flat for me when I cure my UV resin. Otherwise, it's going to curl up some from the heat. Also, make sure that, you're doing this, you take off that protective cover that's on your temporary tattoo first. And now we've just kind of got that sticky side showing that would actually go up against your skin. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I'm just going to take my ISTOYO UV resin and I'm going to go over the entire image with it. Now, I am going as close as I can to the outline, like the outside of it. I don't want a lot of overhang. I really just kind of want just the image and that's it. I don't want more UV resin than I need. And I want to make sure that, obviously, I don't want a super thick layer because we all know that my UV light sucks and it's not very high powered. And when you're doing UV resin, you should actually work in thinner layers anyway. But I do want to make sure that it is completely covering it all and I don't have any holes or bumps or missing areas and all of that. So take your time on this part and just make sure that you have one solid layer of resin before you cure it so you don't have any issues. Now, the one thing that I forgot to do right before I cured it is I did forget to go over it with like a long neck lighter just to pop any bubbles from me like pushing it around and all that stuff. So I did cure a few small bubbles in there, but it's fine because what I'm going to be doing with it, you're not even going to be able to tell. So it's fine. It'll be fine. Anyway, so after I do this and I cure it, now I will hold it up to the light before I cure it just to make sure there's no little dimples in there for where there's not enough resin covering it. And if there is, then I will go back over there, smooth it out, make sure, add more resin if I need to. And because this takes so long, the resin kind of starts to self-level in the areas that you're not working at. So you can kind of see it pulling away if there's not enough space or not enough resin to cover the space. It'll start pulling away from those edges, so you know that you need to go back and add more in those areas. Now, I am going to cure this for a good 10 minutes. I want to make sure that I'm not going to have any issues whatsoever when I take this temporary tattoo off. The other thing that I will be doing, and I'm not going to show you this part, is I did go over and I did a second coat over the entire thing just to make sure that I have a nice thick coat on here, because I need it to, I needed to make sure that it's extra sturdy for what we're going to do later on. All right, so both layers have been cured fully, 10 minutes apiece. And now we're going to take the tape off and then we're going to slide this tattoo off of this background paper. So you want to make sure that once you flip it over, that you have enough water on here that it's going to slide off without any issues and without getting stuck. Now, I did leave it on here for a little while, but I kind of forced it a little bit. It wasn't like it looked like it was ready when I started pulling it off, but then as I went more towards the middle and up towards the top, it wasn't, and little pieces of paper stuck to it. So, me being me, instead of putting it back down and, being patient and waiting, I just went ahead and pulled it off. And then I had to clean up all the little bits of paper that were on there, which was a pain. I did get it done, but there was the constant worry of me messing up the tattoo because I had to rub my silicone tool over it. And you can see here how it's sticking, and you'll see the little pieces of paper that I'm leaving behind, which shouldn't have happened. Again, that's my fault because I just wasn't being patient enough. All right, so now we have this image, and it is gorgeous, and it's just the image. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take some of my Lightwish glitter UV resin, and I'm going to start coloring this in. Now I've flipped it over so this is on the opposite side of the clear UV resin, right up against that tattoo. And I just started with the darker blue that I have. Once I kind of got the edging done on there, I realized I wanted to add some color to it. So I just grabbed some of my alcohol inks and added just one drop. I don't want to make it too dark. I don't want to, have any issues with the UV light getting through there and curing it. And then I'm just going to kind of outline the images of the wings on both birds with the darker color, go in with the lighter color, and that's pretty much it. Once I kind of get the colors in there and blend it in, then I'm going to take the time and I'm going to cure it. Now, when I cure it color by color like this, I'm not going to wait the full 10 minutes in between each one, because every time I go in with another color, I'm going to hit it with the UV light again, pretty much just until it gets hard on the outside so I don't have to worry about it spreading or running or anything. But each time I go in there, whatever didn't 100% cure the first go around is going to get under that light some more. So I'm not like super stressed about it. And we're just going to take our time and do this. Now, I do want to note that when you put it under the lamp now to dry or to cure, it is going to kind of curl up a little bit. And that can be fixed easily enough with your heat gun. Once it's cured, you can, like, I didn't have a whole lot of issues with it as far as while I was doing this, but before I go on to the next step, I do have to kind of put it under my heat gun, get it hot, and then have something pressed on it to kind of flatten it out, because it is curled up a little bit, and that's just from the light and the heat and that the UV resin produces as it's curing. And you can see I'm kind of holding it down there to kind of prevent that, but it is an easy enough fix to get it done, to get it to lay flat. So just keep in mind that that is something that you may come in contact with, that you're going to have to deal with, because at this point you kind of can't tape it down because you need it to be free so that you can actually put the UV resin on there. So yeah. But anyway, as I go through the rest of this, I'm just going to put on some music for you guys, and then I will be back before we go on to the next step. All right, I'm back. So as I finish this up, my initial idea with this was to kind of put some jump rings in the bird's like feathers, the bigger bird, and kind of have it as like a suncatcher type deal or something to that effect. But then I had another idea, and so we're gonna take this up another notch because it would be pretty enough, but as pretty as it is, like when you hold it up to the light, which I kind of wish I would have done just so you guys could see, but I didn't think about it until now. It shows up way, way, way more and way better with this white background on it. So I decided that I'm going to do it something different instead. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to utilize this tray that I've got here. And we're just going to have this as just the centerpiece of this tray. So the first thing that you're going to do is, because this is silver and it's shiny and it's smooth, resin isn't, I mean, it'll adhere to it kind of sort of, but you want to scratch it up. So I just got my nail file and I'm just kind of lightly going over it just to kind of scratch the surface of this tray. And then I'm just going to take a baby wipe it down, dry it off. I am going to clean it a little bit with a spray of alcohol on my paper towel just to make sure that there's no pieces of like metal or anything like that that will kind of float up in my resin and ruin it. And now that it's got that surface that it can actually really grip onto, we're going to take some of our HTV white pigment paste and mix it up and then pour it in. Now, I don't want a lot in here. I just want the bare minimum just to cover edge to edge because I don't need a lot. I want this to still be a tray, and I am going to have to do another coat on top of this. So I want this as thin as possible. And this is where, when you kind of are kind of playing with how thin you can make it, you can mess up because you can not put enough, and then you can have an issue once it cures and it pulls to the middle and then your sides don't have anything. So you want to make sure that you have enough that you're not going to have that issue, but not so much that it's just kind of wasted resin because you don't really need it. Anyway, it's all mixed up. Now I'm just going to pour it in here, and you can see, like, I hardly have any. I don't even think, I want to say I only made like maybe 20 mils, something like that. Like, it wasn't a lot at all. And now I'm just going to take my silicone tool and I'm just going to kind of spread it out, make sure it's touching all the edges, all the corners, all of that, and just spread it as thin as I can and hope that I don't have an issue when it's curing with it pulling away from the sides. And then we're going to hit it really, really good with our heat gun just to pop any bubbles that may be in there. And that's it. We're going to let this cure, and then we're going to come back and dress this up just a little bit more. All right, here we are 24 hours later, and what do you know? I actually put in the right amount and I didn't have any issues. So now we're just going to take some more of our ISTOYO resin and a little bit of that Rolio Pearl White Super Sparkle. Just a little bit. I don't want it to overpower. And we do have glitter in the UV resin that I use, but I just want to give it that overall shimmer and sparkle for just the top coat. So I'm just going to add a little bit in. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is, this is where I was talking about, where I kind of heat it up and make it really, really hot. And I'm pushing it down with a big craft stick so I don't, burn my fingers. And then I put my fingers there like a smart person and burn them anyway. And then after it's nice and hot and kind of pliable, I'm going to push down on it, make it flat, and then grab something heavy that I have sitting next to me and just kind of throw it on there while I do the next part. And that cools to a flat position. Pour a little bit of our resin down on top of this white, smooth it out, and I just want to do this to kind of eliminate any possibility of bubbles getting trapped underneath of it, even though it most likely won't matter because you probably shouldn't hopefully see it if there is, but just in case. Hit it with the heat gun to pop any bubbles, and then I'm just going to kind of spread it out just a little bit more to make sure, because this is a rather large tattoo, just to make sure that I have enough to cover underneath all of it. At this point, this is pretty pretty cooled off. So now it's about placing it in here, pushing it down, pushing out any air bubbles that may be trapped underneath, and kind of positioning it where I want it, and hoping that it's not gonna float, because that could be a problem. But we're gonna cross our fingers and hope for the best and just say it's gonna be fine, and then it will be, right? All right, so now we're just going to cover this up and with the rest of the resin that I've mixed up. And again, I just used a little bit. I used a little bit more this time because I need to make sure that it's completely covering that temporary tattoo and that I don't have any edges sticking up over it. Smooth it out again, corner to corner, side to side, all that fun stuff. And just kind of play around with it and make sure that it is covered. Now, there were parts on here that I don't know, they just didn't want to cover up nicely, so I had to keep going back and kind of fooling with it a little bit. But I mean, it wasn't like too horrible, but I was really worried that this was going to float. That was my main concern because I didn't want to add any more resin to it if I didn't need to. Hit it with our heat gun again to pop any bubbles, and then, you know, I could have left it like this. Like, it's pretty. But I'm not done yet. So I decided that I want to kind of do a little something more to dress up the edges with. So I've got my glass glitter and I've got it in teal, kind of like a tealish color, and a silver. And I thought that it would be really pretty to kind of just add a little bit around the edges of this tray. Now, I'm just kind of going in with my spoon. I didn't want to mix it into the resin. I just kind of want to shove it down in kind of where I'm putting it at. But I want the colors a little bit, you know, mixed up. I'm not going to just go straight silver or straight teal. I want a combination of the both. So I'm just going to kind of spoon them in. And then after I get them in there, start working them down into the resin so that we don't have any sharp pieces or any floaters that aren't going to be 100% covered up, because then that means I have to put another top coat of resin on, and I don't want to do that. I want to be done. So we're just going to take our time and kind of mix it up. Now, I am spreading the colors and kind of mixing them together as I'm doing this, because when they fell off the spoon, they just kind of plopped into it, and, you know, they just need to be mixed up a little bit better. And I'm not necessarily worried at this point about if they're towards the middle, or yeah, towards the middle, because I'm just going to kind of, after I'm done mixing them up and making sure that I've got the colors how I want them, which there's areas that I felt like I needed more of one color or more of another, or they just weren't as nice as the other side, so I just kept fooling with it. And then after I get everything in there and kind of like the way that I want it, I'm just going to kind of start smushing them over to the edges, because I don't want it floating out into the middle. Like, the main part of this is the bird with the flowers. This is just a little added detail that I think just takes it up to the next level just a little bit more. I did have an issue with some of these pieces. Of course, when I want them to float, they don't float, they sink. When I want them to sink, they decide they're going to float. So, I don't know, go figure. But I had to fool around with it, and every time I looked, there was another floater, and it was just kind of annoying. But I poured the rest of my resin on top of this bird because, like I said, there was a couple spots that it just kept, no matter how much I put on there, it just kept leaving it. And I think it was kind of like puffing up in those areas, and that's just kind of the way the tattoo went. I kind of left holes in between where there wasn't part of the tattoo. And I think it was just kind of getting caught under there, so I had to keep fooling with it. But anyway, pushing down the last few pieces, and then we're going to let this do its thing and keep our fingers crossed, hope for the best. I'm just turning it around at all angles, trying to make sure that the light isn't like hitting anything, so I know if there's any little pieces that are still floating. And then that's it. All right, 24 hours later, here we are. It stayed down. All the glass stayed down. I couldn't be more happier with this. Like, this is absolutely gorgeous. I really, really am in love with this. But that's a wrap on this one, guys. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I will catch you guys on Thursday and the next one. Love ya. Bye.